When I'm in the US, I am a European. When I'm in Amsterdam, I am from Rotterdam. When I take part in a feminist book club, my gender suddenly becomes more important. And here at the business school, people tend to see me as the sociologist. And I think anyone can make a similar list. That's because cultural identity is not a fixed characteristic, it is something fluid. How you define it depends on where you are and who you are with. Then why is it that in management so many scholars and practitioners believe that cultural identity basically is the same as the country one is born in? I believe that especially for managers that work with international teams, there's an alternative and more productive way of looking at nationality and culture.
The idea that someone's national culture solidly predicts and explains behavior was developed by Geert Hofstede in the 1980s. He surveyed people at IBM and asked them to indicate their preference. Did they value the common good over individual success? Were they more risk averse? Or did they like to descend into the unknown, etc. He not only found big differences between individual people, but he also found that parts of these differences could be explained by nationality. This led him to the idea of a fixed national value system that in turn explains and predicts behavior. This idea has become very influential in management, and it still is today. I believe that this way of looking at national culture becomes highly problematic if you apply it in a business context, for instance when you're managing an international team. If you do so, you will assume that people's behavior and outlooks can be explained by their nationality, treating their passport as some kind of predictor of what they're going to do next. You will ignore individual backgrounds and stories that make people who they are. So even Hofstede's own data does not support this idea. If you look at this data, you'll find that only 4% of the variance, the total variation, can be explained by nationality. And the differences between the countries are often much smaller than the big differences you'll find in the countries themselves.
So does this mean that national culture is a worthless concept in management? I don't believe it is. As we grow up, we are exposed to what sociologists call national habitus. This is a collection of practices and standards that come as second nature to people living in a country. It's a set of rules you unconsciously conform to. For example, here in Holland, cycling can be seen as part of the Dutch national habitus. Practically everybody learns it and does it without giving it much thought. I think that nowadays people pick and choose parts of the culture they want to identify with, and national habitus is one of those elements people can pick to shape their identity. What elements you pick depends on the context you are in. My Dutchness becomes more salient when I am abroad. If you look at it this way, you don't have to regard nationality as something that inevitably leads to a certain behavior. It is just one of those many items on the cultural menu people can choose from and base their behavior on.
I believe that international managers would benefit from investigating the national habitus of others. In practice, this would mean that you look at the country's history, how this national habitus came into being, looking at geographical peculiarities or at local customs. Doing this can be difficult as a manager, but if you do it right, you increase understanding in your team and you can avoid stereotyping people based on their nationality.